Okay, here's this pretty little camera, Fed 2 in English. So you open up the back, here's all the controls. This is the tripod socket, and it was made so that it could either fit a professional cinematography socket, which is bigger, or this small one is screwed in here to fit a kind of a hobby tripod. So you can take a screwdriver and take that liner out to use a professional tripod. To take the case off, you just unscrew this. And see here, the original thread is that larger thread. And to take the back off, these two things flip up. And when they're lined up this way, then it'll come apart like that. This is the pressure plate. It pushes on the back of the film and holds the film flat against these slides. That piece of fabric there is the shutter curtain. So I'm going to show you how the shutter works, maybe. So to wind it, you turn this knob. There's an arrow there that shows you which direction to turn the knob. And as you see, as you turn it, the shutter timer speed is turning the opposite direction. So now that it's wound, you can set the shutter. I had one of these I bought off of eBay that I ruined by adjusting the shutter speed before I had wound it. So I'm going to turn it to the B setting. B stands for bulb. And so I'm going to take the lens cap off so maybe we can see through it and open it up to a wide opening. We'll talk later about how those things are done. This little button here in the middle is the shutter. And so when you press the shutter, one curtain slides to open up the lens, and then you let off the button and the other one shuts. When you set it at a shutter speed other than bulb, the two curtains are like this, and one opens and then the other one shuts, and the more time between them, the longer the shutter speed. This camera can go set up to 1/500th of a second, which was quite a technical advance in its day. So I'm going to put the lens cap back on, and I've got a roll of film here. So this is the film take-up spool, and it just lives inside the camera, and it's kind of fiddly to take off. Think through this end goes up. It's got the socket in it instead of the protruding, the sticking out end. So that would go like that. So that helps me line up how I'm going to do. And then this, so here you can see there's a little hook. It slides under, there we go. And then that slips on, and there's little sprockets right here. The film has to line up with one of those sprockets. And then it fits there, and you see it's a little bit loose. So we'll tighten it there. Okay, now we're going to operate the camera to take pictures. So this is the lens cap. This is a focal plane shutter, which means that the film, that shutter curtain is really close to the film. And what that means is if you leave the lens cap off and leave this focused on infinity, set it on a table and the sun shines in, it'll concentrate the sun's rays and burn a hole in the shutter. So you don't want to leave this with the lens cap off except right when you're taking a picture. Unfortunately, when you look through the viewfinder, you're not looking through the lens, and so it's really easy to take a picture with the lens cap on, and as it turns out, you don't get much that way. Okay, so here are the adjustments to the camera. We already talked about the shutter speed. You just turn this, so this is B, which is bulb, which it's open as long as you hold it down. 30 is 1/30th of a second. 60 is 1/60th. 125 is 1/125th. 250 is 1/250th. 500 is 1/500th. I'm not going to talk about how you adjust the camera and set the shutter speed and the aperture. You can learn that on eBay, or not eBay, on YouTube. But the camera is, okay, I wind the camera first. Now I can set the shutter speed. Now this scale here is the f-stop. 2.8 is the widest open. 4 is a little tighter. 5, 6 is tighter. 16 is the furthest shut, so the smallest opening. And that just adjusts an iris that's inside the camera ring. This scale here, this red thing is the focus distance. And so if I put this red right here, red arrow pointing to 1.3, that means that an object that's 1.3 meters away will be in focus. And because I'm old and don't see really well, that's how I use this. I had a camera when I was a missionary that was the only way to adjust it, was just estimate the distance and set the number of meters. This camera is a viewfinder camera. So if you look through this viewfinder, there is a little yellow place in the center that has double images. And when you adjust it so that the double images line up, then an object at the same distance as wherever you had that little yellow circle on is in focus. So just now I focused on my bird feeder out the window and it says it's just a little bit short of 7 meters away. This is a focus lever only for the viewfinder. So if you look through the viewfinder and it's blurry, you adjust that for your own eye and it actually works pretty well, and that's an advanced feature. A lot of cameras do not have that. So once I have set the focus, set my shutter speed, I'm going to set the shutter speed it's at 1/25 of a second, and I'm going to set the f-stops at 11. It's focused at 7 meters, and there's a bird in the bird feeder, and there, I have taken a picture. So that's all you need to know about taking pictures. When you are done taking pictures, this BC thing here is how you release that little gear, the little gear that advances the film. You push this down. It should be on C normally. See, this little set screw is kind of your marker. And you turn it back towards B, and then you can wind this way. And you can pull this up so it gives you a little easier grip. And that's how you wind the film back up. And so now we've messed up our first exposure. So I'm going to, I've got to turn it back to C. Now we go. Okay. Now you should be set. You'll have the first frame with a picture of my bird on it, and then you should have half of a blank frame or something, and then the rest should be good things. Okay, so this is the self-timer. And you push it like that to set it, and then you push this little button, and if the shutter had been cocked when it gets to the top, it would release the shutter. So you can put it on a tripod, and that's how you take selfies or group photos that you want to be in the group. Okay, so the only other thing is if you want to change lenses, so this is the lens that came with it, and it's the best lens. It's got the most pleasing colors and the sharpest image, but it has a lens flare in the middle, and so if the light hits the lens wrong, there'll be a little cloudy place in the middle of the picture. So you set it to the shortest focus so that this barrel comes out the furthest, and then you just unscrew it. And the reason you set it to the shortest focus is this little thing, that's what runs the viewfinder here. And you want it to be out all the way. And same thing when you're putting it back on. Put the lens to the widest focus, and then you have to grip this ring and not this one to turn it. And it's a little bit fiddly to be sure if it doesn't turn really easy, then it's cross-threaded, and don't force it or you'll damage it. And then use the big ring to turn it. Yeah, and then it'll, and now you're snug. And that's all there is to running it. Is there anything else you need to know? This is a lens that Josh got me off of eBay. It's It's a different color, but it's the same lens. This one is, it's better and it's worse. There's no lens flare, but it's not as sharp, and I don't think the colors are as pleasing. I can't remember now. This is a standard metric thread. You can look on the internet and figure out what it is, but if you ever have enough money to buy a genuine German Leica lens, the German Leica lens will fit on this, and it's the right focal length, so it will focus appropriately. And if you get a good copy of these are as good as the German lenses, but I've got 2 copies now that aren't good. And if I were to keep playing with this, I think these are about $40 off of eBay, and they come from Russia or Ukraine, so they take forever to get here. But the camera that I ruined, it had a really, really good lens. So I think if you kept buying them, eventually you'd get a really, really good one. So I said I wasn't going to go into taking pictures, but I had to tell you enough, at least, to get going. The film that's in it is Fuji print film, and it's color print film, and it's got a shutter speed of, or it's an ISO rating of 400, but I get better results if I shoot it at ISO 100. And then there's a rule called Sunny 16. On a sunny day, you set the shutter speed at the speed that's nearest the ISO of the film. And so I want to shoot this at ISO 100, so I set the shutter speed at 125. And then these numbers here on the end, the 16, 11, 8, 5, 6, 4, 2, 8, those are the f-stops. And so on a sunny day, you set the shutter speed at the ISO and you set the aperture at 16, and that's perfect for a sunny day. If it's a little bit cloudy, just go down to 11. If it's more cloudy, go down to 8. If you're in heavy shade, go to 5, 6, or 4. If it's dusky or evening, go to 2, 8. The other thing that's really nice about the way this camera is set up is the space between the shutter speeds is the equivalent amount of light as the space between the f-stops and shutter speeds are the same space. So say it was sunny, and so I used my Sunny 16 rule. I set it at 1/25 and f16, but I say, I want to take a picture of Rob doing gymnastics, and I don't want him to be blurry. So I say, well, I want to go to a shutter speed of 500. So I wind the camera, then I set it to 500. So I went from 125, 250, 500. That's 2 steps. So I go 1, 2. So a 500th at f8 is the same as 1/25 at f16, or 250th at f11. And that's all you need to know about that.